Now I'd like to turn to the second panelist, Imam Shamsi Ali, who's director of the Jamaican Muslim Center of New York. You have the floor, Imam Ali. You have the floor.
Thank you so very much, Jenny. And thank you, Dr. Walsh, for inviting me. Yesterday, basically, that I got this message to join. But it's very important for me to join because I think we are in a very unprecedented moment. And it is very important to discuss on issues related to this pandemic. So let me begin by reminding all of us that which is now declared as the global pandemic is truly tremendously challenged each and every one of us. Many of our brothers and sisters are sick. Many have died. Economies collapsing. Many millions have lost their jobs. But I think as religious people, the most painful one that we cannot congregate anymore in our house of worship at the moment. And that itself represents the magnitude of the challenge we are facing at the moment. So I have some point as a reflection. The bishop mentions beautifully about the love of God, and I think we all believe in God's love. Because of that love too, God reminds us from time to time. And one of the things that God is reminding us at the moment is, I think for the past years, we have forgotten really our real God. Secularism has dominant in humans' life at the moment. And God have been kept to the side. Everything is about, as the bishop mentioned, that God had been either economy, materials, science, knowledge, or even our own egoistic tendencies. All these have become God, and we push aside the real God in our life. And I think God reminds us from time to time. There is a verse in the Quran, God mentioned that he sent this type of calamity from time to time, certainly not to punish, but to remind. And as a result, God says in the Quran, لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَضَرَّعُونَ, so that they may be humble, so that they may remember that we are humans and we have limitations and weaknesses. The only one who is unlimited and the most powerful is the Almighty God. And so I think this is a good reminder from the Almighty God to remind us once again of our own reality as human beings, of our own limitations, that there is no option but to one and Almighty God. We are all under one God. And it is very important to realize once again that this world is in need of God. God is not a slogan, is a reality, is an essence of life. And I think each human should realize from now on that we need that God, the God of mercy, the God of love, the God of compassion, the God that unites us all, not divides us. The next one is, it also reminds us about the point that Dr. Walsh mentioned, basically. And if I refer this to the Holy Quran, possibly have heard this many times before from different speakers, but the Holy Quran emphasized the three main principles that Dr. Walsh mentioned. O mankind, we created you from a male and a female, and we made you into many nations and tribes, so that you get to know one another. Now, the word "we made you" represent that God is there involved. He's the one who made us. In other words, that we have to acknowledge principally, as a fundamental, that God is the one who is behind everything. And then he say, we created you from a male and a female, one male and one female, Adam and Eve, as we know. And this is the meaning of one family, one human family. So it acknowledged the existence of God and the existence of one human family, but also acknowledges the existence of differences. A bishop just mentioned it. This is the way he presented, that there is no black, there is no white anymore. I think the Quran still emphasizes the existence of all these differences, but these differences means for us to unite. We made you into many nations and tribes so that you get to know one another.
Now, the word getting to know one another is very essential, because this represents every single point that the main principle that Dr. Walsh mentioned. Getting to know is not about what is your name, where are you from, what is your religion, what is your nationality. But number one, our commitment or our willingness to acknowledge the existence of others and to appreciate what others can share with us. This is about appreciation. So, and number two, a political will to share with one another, sharing with one another. Because as Dr. Walsh mentioned, that we are living in a very globalized world, and interconnectedness and interdependence is something that's unavoidable, that everyone is interconnected, everyone is interdependent from one another. You can imagine this corona started in Wuhan, spread all over, and affected poor nations, weak nations, powerful nations, even the most super powerful nations. And nobody can say, you know, I am immune from it. In other words, it teaches us very clearly that we are all interconnected. There's no exception here. Don't say that you are powerful and you don't want to work with other people around us. We are interconnected and deeply interdependent. So it is very important that the word ta'aruf is translated into a political will to establish a global partnership. And I think the best way to face this pandemic is to build a global partnership. And there should no one feel that they can solve the problem. And I'm sorry to use the possibly a little bit political, but narrow nationalism is not an option at the moment. What we need to see is that we are all one humanity with all differences that we have. We are all one family with all differences that one has. This world has become a small house for us, a small home for us. And there is only one option in front of us. Either we let the people to destroy it, or build joint hand, and serve it together. And so once again, I think in conclusion, just 3 points. Number one is that we need fundamentally to return to our God. We are all under one God, number one. Number two, that we must look into our future. Knowledge is very necessary, but we don't have to be Superman and Superwoman. And number three, global partnership is needed to fight against this global pandemic. And thank you so very much.